All right, and as usual, the president not taking any questions, but
why didn't you testify in your case like you said you were going to, Donald Trump? We all know why. It's because you are a complete coward. You heard the media asking Donald Trump, why didn't you testify? He refused to answer that, but moments before that, he was whining about how the judge hates him and says, you know where the judge comes from, right? That's why he hates me. Justice Merchan was born in Colombia. He moved to New York at the age of 6. Justice Merchan is an American. He's from New York. But I want to be very clear with you what Donald Trump is trying to say right there. Play the clip.
Loathes him. Oh, I'm so surprised. And so does Merchan, loathes me. The judge hates Donald Trump. Just take a look. Take a look at him. Take a look at where he comes from.
Then Donald Trump violates the gag order and starts attacking the prosecutor. Again, a clear violation of the gag order. Play this clip.
I just watched something go in there, and you have to look at the man that did all the talking. Who's representing? He wasn't in the DA's office. He wasn't in there. He came in for one reason. And where did he come from? He came from Washington, D.C., the White House and the DOJ. And he argued the case.
And if you're wondering why Donald Trump is not being held in contempt right now or what the prosecution is doing, Donald Trump's been held in contempt 10 times already for violations of the gag order. What I suspect is that the prosecution knows that this is heading to a verdict. The prosecution feels good about where the case is right now when it heads to the jury, when summation takes place next week and the jury gets the case. I think when it comes to sentencing, the prosecution will bring up these additional violations, but they know Donald Trump is trying to bait them and the judge to do something where Trump could try to request a mistrial or delay a verdict from taking place. While Donald Trump also doesn't want to answer why it is that he's too cowardly to testify. And again, we all know the reason why he's a coward and he knows what would go down on the stand. Donald Trump continues to say these horrible things about the Jewish community. Play this clip.
Who allowed Israel to be attacked, and now he's not even helping Israel. And Jewish people that go for Biden and the Democrats, they should have their head examined. Thank you very much.
And as Bradley Moss says, my head is fine. And I just can't begin to tell you what a despicable thing that is to say. And I know corporate media doesn't want to cover that. I want to talk briefly about that in just a brief moment. But I also want to talk about this interview Donald Trump gave. And I'm going to show you President Biden's statements in a little bit so you can actually see what a real president looks like and sounds like. But Donald Trump gave an interview earlier in the day with the local Pittsburgh station in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And Trump was asked a very basic question. The question is, do you support any restrictions on a person's right to contraception? Play this clip.
So related to this is the whole issue of contraceptives. Do you support any restrictions on a person's right to contraception?
Well, we're looking at that, and I'm going to have a policy on that very shortly. And I think it's something that you'll find interesting. And it's another issue that's very interesting. But you will find it, I think, very smart. I think it's a smart decision. But we'll be releasing it very soon.
You heard what Donald Trump said. We're looking into that. We're going to have a policy. The policy is going to be so big. We're going to introduce the policy. I think you're going to find the policy very interesting. As Vice President Kamala Harris says, Donald Trump has told us who he is. A second Trump term would mean more bans, more suffering, and less freedom. Here's the meme that the Biden campaign posted. Yes, Trump just said this. The question, do you support any restrictions on a person's right to contraception? Donald Trump, well, we're looking into that. And he said he's going to, you heard him with his own words, that he's going to announce a policy. Yet within, I don't know, an hour, or 5 minutes, Donald Trump then posted, this is fake news. Anybody who says that I'm looking into that is a liar. We just heard what it is that you said. By the way, in that same interview, Donald Trump talks about overturning Roe v. Wade. And he says how proud he is and that everybody wanted Roe v. Wade to be overturned, which is, again, completely false. But watch what he says.
We did something that everybody wanted. Everybody said also it couldn't be done. We got rid of Roe v. Wade.
In that same interview with the local Pittsburgh station, Donald Trump spews 2020 election conspiracy theories. Play this clip.
You see what happened. 2,000 mules. Take a look at 2,000 mules. You see what happened. They dropped ballots into boxes. The ballots, many of them weren't even signed. We had many cases where you had more ballots than you had voters. It's a very primitive system. It's a very, very third world system. And not in all states, but in many of the swing states, which are very important for this, very terrible things go on.
Well,
very terrible.
But the courts didn't agree with any of the claims.
Say it again?
I'm sorry, the courts in Pennsylvania did not seem to agree with any of the claims of anything going wrong in the 2020 election.
They didn't have the courage to do what they had to do. The courts were very disappointing. They didn't have the courage to do what they had to do.
Here's what the Biden campaign account just posted. In the last 24 hours, Donald Trump has posted an ad calling for a unified Reich in his second term, echoing Nazi Germany. Trump refused to answer questions about why he posted the pro-Nazi ad, said he's looking at banning contraception, and he bragged about ending Roe v. Wade. I showed you some of those clips right there. Here is Donald Trump walking away as he was asked why he posted this about the unified Reich. Here, play this clip.
Sir, why did you post that video about the unified Reich? How did that get on your website?
Yeah, Donald Trump then had a spokesperson, as you're aware, say, oh, it was just some random campaign staffer who did it. Donald Trump had nothing to do with it. By the way, even though we know that Donald Trump has said that only he and Dan Scavino, his former deputy chief of staff and one of the leaders of his campaign, are the only people who have posting privileges. But as Media Matters just reported, that unhinged, the Unified Reich video came from the unhinged MAGA meme team known as the Dilly meme team that Donald Trump is very close to. The meme team leader, Brendan Dilly, told women not to worry your pretty head about those politics, and that what you need to concern yourself with is how come the floors in the kitchen aren't as shiny as they were 2 weeks ago. This is who created that post. The Dilly meme team, they're frequent flyers at Mar-a-Lago. They're behind these horrific memes, even attacking Donald Trump's primary opponents with some really hateful and despicable stuff right there. In terms of what Jason Miller has said about the Dilly meme team, if you're not following the Dilly meme team, you're missing out. This crew is single-handedly changing the landscape of politics and social media. Many favorites in here include Warlord Dilly, Miguel California, Lauren 3V Memes, and more. Hashtag MAGA. That was the group that created that meme or that video that Donald Trump ultimately reposted right there. Just show you this. Alyssa Farah, who worked for Donald Trump, here's what she had to say. Play this clip.
It doesn't impact millions of Americans the way somebody calling for a third Reich or saying immigrants poison the blood of America in this rhetoric he's using does. So we always have to be ready to call it out. And I just took a little bit of issue. So the throwing the staffer under the bus, and then they tried to claim it was stock footage of a newspaper. So I watched the ad a couple of times. They specifically selected lines about Trump. Trump wins by a landslide, make America great again, largest deportation program in history. And then they chose this. So they want me to believe they chose all of those lines specifically, but that one just somehow snuck in there. It just doesn't even make sense. It's not like he's saying the quiet part out loud. He's shouting it.
Here's what they were saying on Good Morning America on ABC about this clip. Play this clip.
It is normal, of course, for presidential candidates to share videos with their vision for the country. It is not normal for those videos to have references to Nazi Germany and Adolf Hitler.
Ever walk in a store and have no idea what wine to get? Yeah, me too. It's overwhelming to look at a giant wall of wine and have no idea what to pick. Sometimes I spend so much time just looking that I just end up giving up. That's why I love our next sponsor, Naked Wines. This podcast is sponsored by Naked Wines. Naked Wines is a subscription service that seamlessly connects you to the finest independent winemakers on the planet, so you get a box of the market's best quality wines however often you'd like for a fraction of the price that you normally pay in stores. Use our code MIDAS, M-E-I-D-A-S, for the code and password at nakedwines.com and get their incredible deal of 6 bottles for just $39.99. How does Naked Wines do it? Naked Wines connects winemakers and wine drinkers directly, allowing for vineyard to your door delivery at up to 60% off what you would pay in store. By cutting out the traditional retail middlemen costs, winemakers could pass those savings on hundreds of top quality, award-winning wines to you without skimping on quality. Listen, this isn't like your college days where you have to just find a cheap box of wine at the store. This is getting really high quality wines delivered straight to you at an incredible price. I recently enjoyed Naked Wine's bottle of Cabernet right from here in Northern California in my most recent shipment. I love that Naked Wines gives you a quiz that matches you with the exact bottles you love. I personally like bolder, red wines, and it always pairs me with the perfect bottles that match my preferences and saves me a trip to the store. So head to nakedwines.com/Midas and click enter voucher in the top right and put in Midas for just the code and password. That's MEIDAS to get 6 bottles of wine for just $39.99 with shipping included. That's $100 off and less than $7 per bottle. That's nakedwines.com/Midas and use the code and password Midas and grab 6 bottles for just $39.99. One last time, that's nakedwines.com/Midas, code and password Midas for $100 off your first 6 bottles.
Let's compare that, though, if we can, with what President Biden was saying today. Like, I don't want you to forget, like, what a real president sounds like. Here, President Biden says how proud he is to announce that the 1 millionth PACT Act claim helping veterans came in today. Play this clip.
I've long said, and initially got in trouble for saying it, that about 30 years ago, that America has a lot of obligations, but only one truly sacred obligation, and that's to prepare those we send into harm's way and to care for them and their families when they come home, and if they don't come home, care for their families. Nearly 2 years ago, we took a giant step toward fulfilling that obligation when I fought for and signed the PACT Act. It was one of the most significant laws ever. It surprised me anybody voted against it, but a bunch did. We set up to help millions of veterans who were exposed to toxic substances during their services. And today, I'm proud to announce the VA just granted its 1 millionth PACT Act claim. 1 million.
Here's another clip for President Biden, again, talking about just things that presidents are supposed to, how in America no veteran should be left behind. Play this clip.
Since then, we've launched the biggest outreach campaign in VA history to make sure veterans in every state, territory, and area know what the law does. First, it expands eligibility for VA health care. Today, toxic exposed veterans who served during any conflict, not just the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, can enroll. Over 145,000 veterans are now getting care as a result of that one change. The law also provides regular toxic exposure screenings to catch problems early when they can be dealt with. It expands access to disability benefits, including monthly payments for folks who have fallen sick. We've made those benefits effective immediately. Immediately. The law is, look, the bottom line is people not being sure we'd get it done without a lot of complication. The law invests in new facilities, new research, more healthcare workers at VA hospitals. And I'm committed to making the long-needed upgrades in the facilities, the VA's facilities right here in New Hampshire. For families who have lost a loved one, the PACT Act means monthly stipends of about $3,000 a month for a surviving spouse with two children. And by the way, surviving spouse gets those benefits for the rest of their lives. It means tuition benefits for children to go to college, to get job training. I'll never make up for having lost a piece of your soul, the husband, wife, son, daughter. But we owe it to folks, all of them, everyone we can, to help put their lives back together, because it's tough stuff. In America, we leave no veteran behind. That's the motto.
And you compare that to what's going on in MAGA world. Well, here you have Donald Trump's new RNC senior counsel for election integrity, Christina Bobb. This is the mugshot that she took in Arizona for trying to overthrow the results of the free and fair election in Arizona. Notice what she's trying to do there. She's trying to do the mugshot look to look like Donald Trump's mugshot, because when you're in a cult, you got to make that mugshot look the same. Also, when you're in a cult, you have to be a part of the red tie brigade. Donald Trump has the MAGA Republican members of Congress. They all show up in their matching red ties, long red ties, so they look like Donald Trump. And then they rail in these bizarro press conferences about after Donald Trump and how Donald Trump represents the fight against the ruling class. Y'all are the ruling class. Here, play this clip.
What happens to the average American? What happens to any of you? If the courts in New York come after any of you because of something you said, because you said something the ruling class didn't like. And that's what all these other countries are about. They shut down the ruling class. They want to be sure that anyone that speaks up against the ruling class disappears. They want Donald Trump to disappear. They want to send him to jail. They want to take him off the main stage because they know here's their biggest danger, to taking the ruling class down. No, you know why? Donald Trump is not the ruling class.
Would a member of the ruling class be facing 730 years in prison? What a pathetic question. 730 years in prison, and he's a member of the elite? That's pathetic. You're not a journalist.
And you see them, by the way, attack the press right there and say, what a pathetic question. And you saw at the beginning of this video when Donald Trump walked away, when he was asked, why did you decide not to testify? Later in the press conference, earlier in the press conference, Donald Trump was asked about testifying as well, and Donald Trump tried to blame the gag order, even though a gag order involves limitations on extra judicial, outside of court statements. Gag orders never apply to testimony at a trial. It's just 100% false to say the gag order prevented him at trial. The gag order just says you can't attack the judge's daughter, you can't attack the jury, you can't attack witnesses. That's it. You could say anything else you want extrajudicial. But by the way, once you testify, the gag order doesn't apply to your testimony. But here's what Donald Trump said. Play the clip.
And you see what's happened there with the order. Remember, I'm gagged. I'm not allowed to say what I'd like to really say, because you'd be very impressed. But I'm gagged, so why would I take the chance? But we do want to defend our Constitution, so at some point maybe I will take the chance.
Also, remember all those clips I showed you of Donald Trump whining about how cold it is in the courtroom? Well, Frank Runyon, a reporter, he started bringing a thermometer over this past week to take the temperature. And what he was able to find was that the temperature in the courtroom was around 76 degrees Fahrenheit. It should be noted that feeling very, very cold when it's actually warm in the room, the temperature has been between, I think it was been between like 74 and 78 degrees Fahrenheit. Not cold at all in the room. But I think feeling very cold is one of the signs of dementia. I mean, you can do the research on your own, but the fact that Trump feels so cold and keeps falling asleep, there's something to be looked into there as well. But shout out to Runyon, the reporter, for taking the temperature of the room. And there you have it, folks. Prosecution rested, defense rested. We'll have a verdict next week. And I think Trump's getting ready for a conviction. Here, play this clip.
That's right. Well, my colleague, Kristen Holmes, and I are told that overall, when they're looking forward to this, whatever the verdict may be and whenever it may come, we're told that the former president is preparing for a potential conviction, at least on some of the counts. And that's largely because Donald Trump personally believes that the jury is biased. He has long believed, even before the trial began, that he could not get a fair trial in Manhattan, a mostly Democratic city. And so he's preparing for that potential option. Now, I'm also told that some of his attorneys are still considering, maybe this could be a hung jury. Of course, this is all speculation. But as for the former president, he is preparing for that potential outcome. Now, I also just...
that's where we leave it, folks. Have a good one. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 3 million subscribers together. Thanks for watching.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.